for different models in the schools. So that's basically a summary.
If there's any questions?
Hi, thank you, that was very interesting. I have a couple of questions. One is just a legal question. I was talking to Steve, he had 50 kids in a class when he grew up, and I grew up just nice, have 30 kids in the class. Has anything changed with your mandates? Are they giving you, with all this fiscal thing, in terms of class size, what are you allowed to do in terms of increasing class size so that we have a rather rich census of highly paid teachers? I mean, we pay as much per student as they do. I looked it up in Beverly Hills. We pay the same per student as they do in Beverly Hills, California. And also, and it's not your fault, I know, but we have I just looked up 12 of my son's retired teachers, and it came to the retirement pay. I ended up 12 of them, it was $1 million a year. And I know that, again, that's not, you walked into these very rich salaries. But in terms of decreasing the teacher census, are you legally allowed, they change the mandates for class size?
There is no, the district has a recommended, like top size, like it's not a formal cap. They can go over the cap.
What is it?
I want to say, I don't know it per grade off the top of my head. I think it ranges from like 23, you know it?
23, 25, 27.
Okay, thank you.
Are we close to that?
Well, this is what happens. We're not close to it. We're close to it in some buildings, and we're far from it in others. In trying to do this K-6 model across 3 school districts, I think not only have we lost efficiencies, but I think we also lost effectiveness. Because, for example, at Bennett, they have 2 4th grades with 14 kids and 15 kids, or 13 and 15 in one. And then at Woodstock, they have 14 and 14 in 4th grade, all right, because they were getting up at 28 kids, all right? But if you go and look at Phoenicia, they have 22 in one class. Now, when I've anecdotally looked at these data just to kind of see how did kids do, was it the class size? The reality is it's not the class size. So while we're really hyper-focusing on trying to keep classes small, these 3 different schools trying to replicate the program, I think has probably diminished what we're trying to do and also cost us a whole lot more money than it needs to.
Because people who are not, younger generation, we had 30, 35 Catholic schools, 40, 45 kids in a class, and we did better than kids are doing now in terms of that. I have another question. It's personal, but I think it's relevant. You were talking about flipping the model. There's another model that I think can be flipped. And I'm not an educator, it's just what I'm thinking because I'm a parent and I used to be a kid. For a few years, my son homeschooled, and I was amazed, and I learned from other parents, a loosely organized group. And all of these kids ended up, very successful, I would say, and we all kind of learned for each other. And I can remember being, I think I was the only 2nd grader who couldn't read, and my 2nd grade teacher gave my mother an assignment. It didn't, she thought I was the school's responsibility, but I remember this teacher sitting down with me and my mother, and she assigned to my mother a book. Here's what you do at night, and my mother said, oh, okay. And she jumped in with both feet, and I learned to read like that. I don't know why I didn't know how to read, but I didn't. And I think parents have been so much is put on you, and so much is put on the teachers, and that's the politically correct thing to do. But is there a way to flip the model so parents step up? Because there's so much pressure on you and the teacher and the grade, but are you allowed to sit down or to really assign a bigger role? Because I can tell you something. You can be a very loving and concerned parent, but I had a few teachers when my son went back to school who said, hey, you should do this. And I didn't even think about it. And they educated me. The teachers made me a better parent. I've had teachers do that. And it wasn't that I wasn't being thoughtful, just things didn't occur to me that I could do organizationally and educationally. And what's your effort there?
You know, there are some parent programs, I think we certainly can strengthen our parent programs, but in terms of what the state looks at and what we can mandate from our parents.
I don't mean mandate, I'm just saying, you know, looking at all the things that don't cost money, and that's one of the things that don't cost money. And I think there are a lot of parents out there that if you gave this very cogent and intelligent presentation, and if you gave it to as many parents as you could gather, you're a very effective speaker. People understand that everything's changing, you know, that we all have to step up. I think you're a terrific communicator. I think I think that model has to be flipped, because this idea of the passive parent is a disaster socially and educationally. And I would think that that could be a very exciting thing to be done outside the world of mandates and tutors.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I really welcome it. I know that when I was a building principal, if someone was in my office, that parent had a phone call. And usually the child would call their parent, because that was part of my shtick. My thing that I did with them was for them to pick up the phone and explain, you tell them now why you're in my office, because I didn't like to hold secrets from parents. And I never wanted to worry more about someone's child than a parent was worried about their own child. So I think there's things you can do, and I think that there's a lot more to explore down that avenue. It's something that we'll bring back for sure, and something to think about. I think that teachers do impart different kinds of wisdom. I think that parents do impart other kinds of wisdom to each other. So I think that that's something that we need to look at more. So I appreciate that suggestion. We don't have any specific plans. We do have parent-teacher conferences. I think there's lots that we can do in that area. Thank you.
Yes. 3.5 years ago, there was a plan in place. The board still hasn't put a plan in place, a long-range plan for this district. And I still hear that they were elected not to close the school. Now, it's a huge problem with the space that we have in the district, just by class sizes, and nothing really seems to be addressed. You said next year, we're already going to be $2 million in the hole, or whatever. So what is the immediate plan to try to plug that gap without cutting into student programs? Already, I know electives are starting to go away because there's not a population in the middle school, high school for it. You just said, two administrators said that because of the enrollments in the special ed classes is skewing the numbers. So it's going to affect us. We go another year like that, it's going to could have a financial impact on the district too, right? If we don't.
Well, I think that what the way that the state works is the more you fall behind. But I think this is going to be happening all over. But what I don't like is the more you fall behind, the more the state gets involved and controls your money. And that is not okay. I mean, I understand that's what they will do, but I think that we have enough talent within our faculty and within our administrators and within our parents and our PTAs that we can work on trying to solve this without them telling us this is exactly what you're going to do and prescribe something for a community that they really know nothing about.
But that's the kid part, the financial impact of keeping all this space.
Well, I think that's the thing that we're talking about at the district level, at the board level, and that we're going to be starting to present plans on it. What we're trying to do is, by not closing a school, okay, we are still dealing with the same space as one plan, as opposed to, I know that there's been a big discussion about closing a school. One of the concerns we're having is if you close a school, is there a way to, there's only two ways, you know this stuff, and I'm not trying to at all, you know, I don't know the right word at this point.
Well, tell the public.
But I wanted to let the public know, there's only two things we can do. We can either decrease expenditures or increase revenue. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's how you make a budget. So we've been trying to figure out ways to increase revenue